Man, it's real talk with your main Chip Washington. When it comes to information, the man got an arsenal. Bring you up to speed with what you need. He's a local and nationwide news feed. And let's talk about it. Dialect to do something about it. Chip got the flow wide open if you got questions about it. Man, it's the show that brings you to your raw. To solve all problems and start with real talk. Real talk. It's 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 real talk. Yeah. Welcome to Real Talk with your host, Chip Washington. It's real talk. It's real talk. It's real talk.
Monday in the big city, and it is September 21st, 2020. Chip Washington here with you on this Monday. That is kind of a sad day for me, to be honest with you. Hold on just a second. I got to turn stuff off here. Hello, everybody. Those of you who are taking a few minutes out of your busy schedule to join me this evening for another new edition of Real Talk. I am your host, Chip Washington, and it is a pleasure to be here with you today. It truly, truly is. This has been a sad day for me, and I must admit that the impending number of 200,000 people who have died at the hands of COVID-19 is quickly upon us. And, when you think about, the tremendous loss to families all over this country from coast to coast, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles, grandparents, children, cousins, who have succumbed to this deadly virus, and we are at a mark of 200,000 souls gone. In 7 months. It is really a lot to wrap your head around, if you care about humanity and your fellow man like I do. And if you don't mind indulging me, and if you'd like to participate, if you're out there, that would be fine too. I would just like to take a moment of silence for all those souls who have left us far too soon, and for the grieving family members and friends and colleagues that they have left behind. So I'm just going to take a moment of silence just to remember all those folks. For those of you who participated in that, thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's an emotional time. It really is for all of us. But, life moves on. We carry on with life. Our family members would want us to go on and to move on. So that is what we are going to do. And first and foremost, I hope that you had a good week since the last time we communicated with each other. And if anybody's out there right now, can you just hit me up on the old Facebook Live line and say, hey, Chip, we're here. We hear you. You're coming in good tonight. I know the real test will be when I get this phone call, these guests in here. But at least let me know that you're out there, if anybody is out there and checking me out. But if I'm not, I'll do the whole show by myself. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I hope you've had a good week. You've been safe, and everything has been okay with you, and you and your family and those you care about. If you're celebrating a birthday or an anniversary or a special occasion, congratulations to each and every one of you. I hope it has been a great day or a great weekend past. As we like to generally do on this show, we are going to talk a little bit about some of the news that has affected us the last week or so. But before I do that, I would like to introduce my roster of guests this evening. I think we have a pretty good show. We're going to talk about some serious subjects, though, so get ready for that. Dr. Audrey Elion is going to be here, and she is going to talk to us about the sobering statistics in reference to suicide. COVID has created a lot of stress, tension, and heartache for a lot of people in this country. Unemployment, how to pay bills, hopelessness. And she's going to talk a little bit about that, the increasing suicide rate, not only among older adults, but among children as well. And I've always struggled with that, and hopefully that she will be able to provide some clarity in terms of that. So she'll be with us on a little bit later on. We'll also start off the show with Memphis Police Department Deputy Chief Don Crowe, and he will be here to talk about this exploding crime rate that we are seeing here in Memphis. I mean, 2 more murders today, 1 this morning, 1 late this afternoon, a double shooting at a Kroger's on Poplar and Kirby Parkway earlier this evening, leaving 1 person dead, so 2 deaths so far today. It has been another really violent weekend in this city. We are about to break some unenviable records in terms of perhaps setting a new homicide rate, the whole 9 yards. I want to talk to the deputy chief, about that, and what he sees, in his position, a high-ranking position with the Memphis Police Department. Talk about the protests, talk about the anti-police sentiment, talk more about, manpower issues and how we try to combat this situation, which, as I said last week, and I'll say it again, we have lost our humanity. I mean, nobody seems to care about anybody. I mean, the value of human life, what value of human life? I mean, there doesn't seem to be any. I mean, folks are getting shot in cars. They're getting shot at on the interstate every other day. We're finding bodies everywhere just strewn, men shooting women, women shooting men, killing. Nobody seems to care about the human element these days. And I'm very troubled by that fact. So we'll talk about that, as well. And another, I guess, another subset of the COVID-19 pandemic is schools. Now, we all know that Shelby County Schools has gone virtual for at least its first semester. But another subset of that is last week, the superintendent of education decided against fall sports because of the uncertainty of this pandemic. And that, of course, means high school football. And for a lot of athletes, this senior year was probably their showcase year. This was the year that they were going to show off. They were going to get out there. They were going to, try to impress some of the scouts. Scouts always hear about the top athletes at some of these schools and want to come check them out and see if maybe they're college material. Well, that's not going to happen for any of those athletes this year. And we're going to talk to a head coach from one of our high schools here, Mitchell High School, as a matter of fact, and Coach Nathan Cole, the head football coach at Mitchell High School, will be our guest a little bit later on in the show too. We'll get his take on all this and how he is relating to his kids. I know a lot of young athletes have been protesting this move, but it's a subset of this virus, and that's a pretty tough deal. I want to get back to the violence that we have seen, that we see every day in this city. And ironically enough, pastors and other religious leaders have dubbed this a week of nonviolence. Well, so much for that. Again, lack of respect. And but again, this is the week that folks are supposed to try to take it easy, and that we're going to try to practice the nonviolent way and see if we could do that for a few days. Started, I believe, either Saturday or sometime over the weekend, but, so far, not so good. Again, in terms of what else is going on out here, COVID virus is still handling itself in a pretty devastating way. We heard this afternoon that one of the fire departments has several cases of COVID-19. In their midst, so they're dealing with this as well. A cluster or 2 has developed there. Christian Brothers High School has now gone virtual for the next 2 weeks because they've had some outbreaks of COVID-19 on their campus. So for the next 2 weeks, they will be doing their thing from home. And again, we talked about it. Almost 200,000 folks dead of this coronavirus before the end of this day. I'm sure we will reach that very sad milestone. But on the other end of the scale, I don't know if you have been watching the news or you saw what was going on about 200 miles south of here in my old stomping ground of Jackson, Mississippi. What up, Jackson, Mississippi? They announced a brand new head coach at Jackson State University today. You might know him. His name is Deion Primetime Sanders. Deion Sanders was announced as the new head football coach at Jackson State University in Jackson, Mississippi earlier today. They had a parade. They had all kinds of stuff. And he drove in the gym where it was. drove in a vehicle, drove in, they drove him in, he got out, and that's typical Dion. So he really hadn't had experience in that coaching thing. I know he's been coaching his son's high school team recently in Texas, but he's never had any pro coaching experience. However, he is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, so that must say something about the fact that he tends to know what he's doing in terms of at least the fundamentals of football. So we'll see what happens. If nothing else, he'll bring some excitement to Jackson State University games. And, of course, if the Southern Heritage Classic goes off next year, and I saw Fred Jones on TV a little while ago, I think he's rather excited about the fact that prime time is going to be a part of all of that. So that will make the game and that weekend really prime time if Jackson State is any good on the football field coming up next year. So we're excited about that. As I said a few minutes ago, I'm looking at the clock here. Hopefully, my first guest will not forget me. He is the Deputy Chief of the Memphis Police Department, Don Crowe. And we're going to, as I said, have a substantive chat about everything that's going on, this anti-police sentiment, defund the police, and of course the residency issue in terms of staffing. Memphis Police Department is understaffed. Crime is just off the chain. I mean, really, you just almost expect something to happen. That's a bad place to be. You expect something to happen. You just know something's going to happen somewhere. Somehow. So, as I said, we have a pretty good show tonight. Some heavy issues that we're going to be talking about, but at the same time, maybe we can come up with some answers and some solutions, and more importantly, give you information that may help you, or if you might be dealing with something in particular, or someone else, even more so. And by the way, condolences to all those who are familiar with the fact that Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg died over the weekend. She was 87 years old. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a.k.a. the notorious RBG. And when they asked her, when they gave her that moniker and they asked her, was she familiar with that, and that nickname that she was given, the notorious RBG, she turned around and said, "Yeah, absolutely. This was after the notorious B.I.G." She said, and one thing we have in common, that we were both born in Brooklyn, New York. I said, "Well, go ahead on, girl." So we mourn her passing, and of course she was a revolutionary figure in the legal justice arena, and one of the first women to go to law school, to graduate from law school. And she made her way on the Supreme Court, nominated by President Bill Clinton at the time, and served dutiful. And so she will be missed, and she was a role model to a whole bunch of people. So, again, if you are just tuning in, this is Real Talk with me, Chip Washington. And as I said, we are – see, everything works out the way it's supposed to. So hang on just a second. This is Real Talk. This is Chip.
Chip, this is Don Crowe with the Memphis Police Department. How are you?
I'm doing great, Deputy Chief. How are you this evening?
I'm very good.
Well, thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule to call me and chat for a few minutes. I really appreciate that.
I'm glad to, sir. Anything for you in the health department.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So we're gonna talk a little bit. Obviously, you're a veteran of law enforcement. You've been on the force for a long time, and you've seen the ups and downs of all of this in terms of crime. I gotta say, Deputy Chief, it really is tough out here these days. Crime seems to be very prevalent, and I've said this before. It just seems to me that we've just lost our way in terms of just being civil and really having care and concern for each other. When you see what you see on a daily basis, what does it make you think?
Well, as you said, I've been around a long time, and I've seen these cycles before. We always have to remember that crime right now is 35% lower than what it was in 2006.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
Right.
Yeah.
In 2006, crime was bad, and the police department and the government worked together to put some programs in place. One of that included adding additional officers to our staffing. And so by 2011, crime was down significantly.
So
And as our staffing numbers have declined, we see this slow rise back.
So in terms of the numbers we see this year, and I know we've seen several people talking about this in terms of the numbers and the whole 9 yards may break a record for the number of homicides. What is your greatest, I guess, I don't know, I mean, your greatest concern, because there's a lot of anti-law enforcement sentiment not out here these days, defund the police, and Memphis Police Department is suffering from a shortage in terms of officers. So that makes your job even more difficult, I would imagine.
It does. And so certainly our murders are up over 50% this year compared to last year.
Mm-hmm.
We are definitely going to break the all-time record for the number of murders in Memphis. And it's very sad. It's very disappointing to see the community and the community's reaction. I certainly have to think that there's more people out there that support law enforcement than what's being portrayed. And certainly we know that crime is never the police department's problem. It is the community's problem. And so it takes everybody in the community working together to lower crime rates.
You know, that's a message that we've heard continually from the director right on down, that, people need to not be afraid to stand up and to not be afraid to identify individuals that they know that may have committed crimes. But, and that's a very hard pull. How do you make that how do you sort of try to change the culture? How do you get people to be more involved in trying to solve these crimes versus not saying anything at all?
Absolutely. So they have to remember this is their community. The people getting hurt are their friends, their neighbors, their relatives, their co-workers. So everyone has a stake in this. And I'll bet everyone in Memphis can name a person they know that has been a victim of crime. And so it's no longer it's somebody else's problem. It's everyone's problem. And it takes everyone speaking up. And so always the anonymous way through Crime Stoppers is there.
Mm-hmm.
But we want people to come forward and not be anonymous. We want people to go by their precinct and tell them what they know. We want them to call their precinct and tell them what they know. We want them to call the Homicide Bureau and tell them what they know. So always keep in mind, Crime Stoppers is a wonderful program. It aids the Memphis Police Department greatly. But to call us and tell us who committed the crime, we still have to go build the evidence to prove it. But some of these people that are calling and telling us who committed the crime is the exact witness that we need to come forward and provide us evidence that we can use in court.
We are speaking with Memphis Police Department Deputy Chief Don Crowe, spending a few minutes with us here on Real Talk. And Deputy Chief, let's talk about, if we can, the sentiment that's not just, I guess, here, protests all across the country. There is a clear distrust. And maybe a lot of that has to do with some of the actions that we've seen elsewhere in terms of law enforcement versus the general public. What the protest and the fund the police and all these massive protests we've seen across the country, what's your take on all that?
Well, I look at it like this. When one member of the teaching profession does something wrong, we do not condemn all teachers. When one member of the medical community, whether it's a doctor or a nurse, does something wrong, we do not condemn all the medical community.
Right.
When one politician does something wrong, we do not condemn all of the politicians. So we would ask everybody to look at police as the same way. In the United States of America, there's about 800,000 police officers. The vast the vast majority of them serve with dignity and honor and do everything they can to help people.
Right, right.
But all the time, all the discussion is consumed with the troublemakers in the group. And that's not who we are as a profession. It's not who we are as a group.
What would you say is the biggest, I guess, hurdle or misconception, or just really a difference of opinion when you deal with folks in this town on a regular basis, just everyday basis, who have their own skew of law enforcement? What is it that when you have conversations with Joe and Martha Citizen, what do they say if you say what is the problem? I mean, what is the issue? Why are we where we are today? What do you hear from everyday folks in terms of where we are, as a society, from the law enforcement perspective?
So we want everybody to get to know their police officers. We want everybody to be involved in a neighborhood watch program and get to know their neighbors. We want everyone to be involved at their neighborhood watch program at their local precinct. And I think once you get to know police officers on a basis where you see their face, you know their name,
right,
you know something about them, I think that's where the trust comes back.
Mm-hmm.
When we see police officers as this anonymous person in a squad car, that's not who you trust. You trust the person that you can talk to, and you know what that person is like.
What do you think the outreach has been in terms of the Memphis Police Department with the general population, the community? Do you think that there has been a concerted effort for law enforcement to really get out in these streets and get out to know these folks that you just talked about?
I do. It's a very complicated issue. So we know now from some staffing studies we've done that our patrol officers are spending 80 to 90% of their time just responding to calls for
Right,
service.
right.
Last year, our 911 call center answered almost 2 million calls and dispatched officers on 839,000 events.
Wow. That's huge.
So the patrol officer's time is just so consumed by our core services of responding to calls, investigating, and reporting crime. But every precinct, every workstation has a community component to it. Every precinct does something with the youth, especially in the summertime. Every precinct is doing something in their community. And if you're not seeing it, it means you're not being involved with your precinct. Please get involved.
Wow, that's a good word to for folks to listen to. And again, we're speaking with Memphis Police Department Deputy Chief Don Crowe. And Deputy Chief, a couple more questions. There was an issue here that caught quite a bit of attention in terms of the building up, kind of shoring up the staff of the Memphis Police Department as pertains in the residency requirement issue. The city council, initially it was going to be on the ballot for folks to vote on. Then they took it off the ballot and they made the decision that it wasn't going to happen. You have a take on that?
I do, and I always want to be careful and not speak in political terms. But here's what we know. Our staffing level now is very similar to what it was in 2006 when our crime was higher than what it is now.
Oh, man. Okay.
And we were given permission to hire 500 additional officers. In 2011, we maxed out at 2,480, almost 2,500 commissioned officers.
Mm-hmm.
We are back down now below 2,100. We're in the 2,000 range for commissioned officers.
Mm-hmm.
And we also know that right now there's about 300 commissioned officers eligible for retirement. So I say all that for the background information. We know we have to recruit and retain officers.
Right.
And so whatever it takes to recruit good, quality police officers is what we want to do. We've never, ever said that we were going to not hire somebody that lives in Memphis in preference to hiring somebody that lives outside of Memphis.
Right.
We want to hire both. Everybody that lives in Memphis, we encourage them to apply for the job of Memphis police officers.
Mm-hmm.
But if that does not get us the staffing levels we need, then how do we get additional people?
There you go.
And so residency was just one of those small steps that discussed with the command staff, discussed with city HR, that we thought it may attract some quality officers to Memphis.
Well, I mean, it seems like the challenge is great, and the challenge is continually up the hill, for law enforcement. But I will say that, I respect highly what law enforcement does, and I respect, what you all have to deal with on a daily basis. People don't seem to understand or don't really think about the fact that underneath the uniform, the badge, and the gun and the car are human beings, and that you all get up in the morning, dedicate your life to protecting and serving others, but you also want to come home at the end of the day as well.
Correct. We are just humans. None of us are perfect. I think we all know who the one perfect one was.
Yes.
And so we are teaching Little League baseball, softball, soccer, football to kids. We are doing all those things.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want the police to be the best in the community, but we also know it takes the whole community.
Well, amen to that. And Deputy Chief, really appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your busy schedule to talk with our listenership this evening. Deputy Chief Don Crowe from the Memphis Police Department, thank you, sir, and we honor your service, and you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. All right. Well, there you go. Now, like it or don't like it, appreciate it or don't appreciate it, everybody has a job to do. And I asked him the direct questions that I asked him because I wanted to find out, perceptionally speaking, where they are. We have seen, remove, what we hear on a daily basis for a minute. Remove that, all the crime, that all the frustration, difficulty, anger that we see on these streets, our streets. But think about the fact that law enforcement has become a target too. Not too long ago in Compton, California, 2 officers doing their job in their car patrolling were attacked and shot. Both of them shot. Thank God they're going to be survived, but I mean they were just ambushed. This happens often, and I don't know what the motive is. I don't know if it's anger. I don't know if it's frustration. Now, listen, I will say that there have been some bad apples, as he stated, out there. There are, but not everybody's a bad apple. We have all law enforcement officers that take their job a little too seriously, and they take the fact that when you have a badge, a gun, and a car, and you have the power to arrest, you have a lot of power. And if graduates from the police academy who are in their early 20s, when you give some people that type of power, you know what? It goes to your head. It really does. And because you're on another level, and a lot of folks don't know how to deal with that. Now, that's not just for the young folks. There are some veterans out there who have some issues as well. So, if we're going to talk about one, we need to talk about the other. But the bottom line to all of this is, at the end of the day, what are you going to do to make things better? What am I going to do to make things better? What are we as a society going to do to make things better? When you blame other people every chance you get, it's their fault, it's their fault. They're not doing this, they're not doing that. What are you doing? What are you doing? I mean, seriously. I mean, we all out here trying to do the very best we can. I know I am. And that becomes the question at the end of the day is, how do we make things better? And, he was honest, and he said, look, you know what? I mean, nobody's perfect, but we need everybody to help us. We need people to help us. We need people, the society, the neighborhoods, the communities to help us do our job so we can do our job better to protect you. I don't know. It's going to be a continuing debate on and on and on. But we're going to move forward now, and we're going to talk about something. Now, this is heavy, and a lot of people don't want to talk about it because they're dealing with things that feel like are personal, but they're highly stressful. We're going to talk about suicide. A lot of people are committing suicide these days, and obviously the pandemic has something to do with that. This is a mental health issue, but we're going to delve into this a little bit. And I hope that, you guys pay attention, and if there's something that you hear that, that gets your attention, you might want to make a comment on the Facebook Live. This is Real Talk. I'm Chip. It is 6:30, and we're about to make our second phone call. Well, our first phone call, actually. We're going to talk to Dr. Elion, Audrey Elion, and we're going to talk a little bit about suicide. It is not something that many people want to talk about, but it is a big problem in this country, and maybe we can find some answers to the questions. So hang on just a minute.
Hello.
Dr. Audrey Elion, Chip Washington from Real Talk. How are you?
I'm wonderful, Mr. Washington. How are you?
Well, I'm doing okay. We'll do a lot better if you just call me Chip. That Mr. thing always throws me off. I'm just Chip, okay? I'm just Chip.
Okay, Chip, I sure will.
All right. Well, listen, first and foremost, I'm very happy to have you on the show, and I'm very happy that you took some time to talk to our audience this evening about a very serious topic, and one that you are an expert in. And when I reached out to you, I wanted to talk about suicide and the escalating suicide rate, not only among older folks but children as well. I want to delve into that a little bit. And obviously, in your profession, this is something that you see and talk about, I guess, and when you speak to other folks and colleagues, and when you present all around the country. Talk to me about this epidemic now we're dealing with in terms of suicide and its escalating cost of life.
Well, I at least want to start off by saying that this month, September, is Suicide Prevention Month.
Yes, ma'am.
This is something that we recognize every year, and the Governor Lee, along with all the mayors across the state, have signed proclamations declaring this as Suicide Prevention Month. Mm-hmm. So we just don't focus on it just one month, but this is like our main month,
yes,
where
ma'am.
we really try to educate people and get information out here, because our rates have been increasing
yes.
over the years.
Mm-hmm.
But we've also been doing more and more to educate others about the warning signs of suicide, and also preventative measures that can be done, and also informing them of what resources are available, not only for, like you said earlier, the children, but also for adults as well. So the organization that I'm a part of is the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network.
Yeah.
And what we do, we're a grassroots group of Tennesseans and organizations, and we work together to eliminate the stigma of suicide by educating the community about suicide and ultimately reducing the rate of suicide in our state.
Now, before we move forward, you just used a phrase there, eliminating the stigma of suicide. What is the stigma of suicide?
Some people think that suicide is a taboo word. That's a word that's a no-no. They really have an issue with talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that's not talked about widely because sometimes people are embarrassed by it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people don't know enough about it, so they don't feel comfortable discussing it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when you're depressed, we see a lot of people who are depressed or stressed or very anxious, and they're dealing with a lot of different mental health issues as well, but it doesn't have to be just mental health issues, but they become overwhelmed with everything that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And they start having those feelings of suicide. They think that they want to end it all. And we try to do everything we can to let them know that we have people that can talk to them to try to help them deal with the situations that they're facing and learn ways to cope. So that way it's not a stigma attached. This is something that you need help for. Just like when you go to the doctor. If you have a cold or the flu,
sure.
you go see a doctor, you get the help that you need,
yeah.
and then you're better. Same thing. We want you to go and see a counselor or a therapist, talk to them about it, resolve it, and then constantly go back, and get the assistance that you need. So that way you will no longer have those thoughts.
We are speaking with Dr. Audrey Elion. She is a mental health professional. We are talking about suicide this evening and the escalating rise in numbers, not only here but nationally as well. Now I had said before, I sort of prefaced this, Dr. Elion, by saying that COVID has a lot to do with what we're dealing with, the stress, the pressure on families to try to make it. How am I going to put food on the table? Who've lost their jobs? How am I going to pay my bills? That exacerbated with maybe other things has made things even harder, do you think, these days?
I would say yes. We've seen a rise in the number of suicidal ideations across the country, according to the CDC, and also here with the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network. We've seen a rise and increase in those calls.
Mm-hmm.
So those people who are feeling a little anxious or very stressed out because of the pandemics that are going on, and they have a loss of job. They're being isolated from friends and family and loved ones. They're unable to deal with things. And so we have seen an uptick across all age groups.
Now, you had also suggested, and I'll be honest with you, like many people out there, whether they choose to admit it or not, known people in our lives who have committed suicide. And it's just it's just this hidden thing, like you said a few minutes ago. I mean, you just don't know. I mean, during the day, you interact with individuals, they seem like they're okay, and generally speaking, and then you get a call late in the evening, as I have, that someone told me that someone took their own life, and it shook me to my core. So you spoke earlier about some of the warning signs that people can see in people that they know who are close to maybe thinking about or contemplating that. Can you share that with us, please?
There are several warning signs, Chip, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that's something that people think is just out of the blue. But a lot of times people have communicated that they are suicidal ahead of time, but we don't always see what those warning signs are.
Right.
Some of them may be like a preoccupation with death. They withdraw from their friends and loved ones. And so, you have this person that's usually outgoing and very interactive, and then they stop.
Yeah.
And you're wondering, like, what's going on? Or they are showing up for work on time, and then all of a sudden now they're absent a lot. Yeah. Or they're taken off because they're sick. Mm-hmm. And some of the other things, sometimes you have a loss of appetite, or they may start overeating. They may have difficulty sleeping, or they may be sleeping a lot. And so it's so many different things that we're seeing. But I think historically people remember people give away prized possessions. So you do hear that a lot.
Yeah, that's true.
And any drastic change in behavior, sometimes that can be a sign. They're acting out of character. They also may have an increase in panic attacks, and different other ailments, physical problems that they're starting to show a little bit more than what they did before. And like you said, with COVID, if they've lost a loved one, either to COVID or any other thing, sometimes they're feeling down.
Yeah.
They're feeling a loss, and sometimes they are contemplating suicide because of that. And one other thing that we're starting to see more and more of is the use of alcohol and drugs to cope.
I was going to say.
And sometimes in that state, that altered state, they may not be thinking clearly, and may also take their lives at that time as well. So
you're talking about, and I didn't even, that one sort of escaped me, but you're right. The increase in the drug and alcohol abuse, substance abuse, which leads to even more depression if you're already depressed, and maybe doing things that maybe you would not ordinarily do in times of stress in situations like that. So that's a very important component too, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
And another thing I would be remiss if I didn't say, a lot of times when we're doing suicide assessments and we're asking the person, if they want to die, a lot of times they're saying they don't want to die, they just want the pain to stop.
Yeah.
So sometimes if the issues stop, then they would no longer feel that way. But, you and I, if you're in the midst of a situation and you're very stressed out and things seem to be overwhelming, sometimes you can't see the sunlight. And so therefore all you see is darkness. And so you just want that to stop. You just want it to end. Yeah. And so that's what we're seeing a lot of as well. But the numbers have been on the rise, unfortunately. But we also have more and more counseling staff available and people that are aware of what the signs are. We've been educating people year-round, doing free workshops for those who want QPR training, which is question, persuade, and refer counseling, which is suicide prevention. And it's just letting everybody know this is for lay people, this is for everybody. Churches, we go out to parents, children, just to let them know what the signs are, so when they see someone that may be having those signs, or if they see them within themselves, that they can, get help for those people that they care that most about.
Well, before I let you go, can you just give some of our folks some resources that they may not know about in terms of, some mental health issues or some really some tough things, but there are resources out there that they can talk to, people they can talk to, programs that they can be involved in?
Oh, definitely. I want to start off by saying I have several numbers, Chip, and maybe you can post those later.
We'll do it.
But we do have a crisis line that people can call, and it is a local crisis line. So this is for anyone that's feeling suicidal or concerned about someone and may need someone to talk to, not actively suicidal and ready to do something, but just having those thoughts and want to talk things out.
Sure.
The local number is, the state number is 1-855 274-7471. And that's our Tennessee suicide prevention number.
Okay. Very good.
And it is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days out the year. So if anyone calls that number, there is trained people there to assist and help. We also have a text line, which has been amazing, especially with some of our young people who may not want to talk, but they will text.
Yes.
And so they will then text Tennessee, so TN, to 741-741.
I'm going to get this information from you. I'm going to post it on my page. But that was not that what you just said there was extraordinary in terms of a text line for people who don't want to verbally talk about it, but do want to communicate.
Definitely. And I do want to leave you all with two new numbers as well, because I feel like this is important. And I've had an outpouring of people say, well, what do we do if we know someone in the moment that's doing something? Who do we call in that moment? I don't know what to do. Now, they may not have they may not have taken any drugs or shot themselves. If that happens, they need to call 911. If a person is actually in crisis, they have done something, then yes, please call 911 immediately to get them medical care. But if not, if they need someone to be assessed, that person says that they're suicidal or they're feeling down and they really want to talk to someone, then we have the mobile crisis number. We have two. We have one for adults, and the local number is 901-577-9400.
Okay.
And then the youth mobile crisis, which is led by Youth Villages, their number is 866-791-9926.
Well, look, I got to run because I got another guest. But listen, you and I are gonna reconnect offline, and I'm gonna get all this information because this is vitally important. And I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to have this conversation. I mean, really, this has been an amazing conversation, and I hope that we help somebody along the way. And I will have you back if you will come back.
I will definitely come back because it's a lot to press in the 10 minutes, but anytime you want to have me, Chip, just give me a call.
I will do that. And thank you so much, and you have a good evening, okay?
You too.
All right, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Well, that was I don't know about anybody else, but I tell you, that was a deep and meaningful conversation that a lot of folks, like she said, you may never know. But, if somebody was listening or somebody who has an issue and needs to reach out because of the desperation that they feel inside, instead of taking their own life, maybe we can save a life by having conversations like this. I hope you appreciated it because I did. Now, we are going to shift gears once again, and we're going to talk a little bit about the subset of COVID as pertains to high school sports. And, of course, we all know that with Memphis being virtual at least this semester, the district has also decided that there was not going to be any football, and that has caused a lot of irritation from a lot of people. We're about to talk about that right now. Been a good show so far tonight. Come on, Coach.
Hello.
Hey, Coach Nate, Chip Washington from Real Talk. How you doing?
Hey, how you doing, Coach?
I'm doing well. So listen, thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time this evening. We wanted to talk. Of course, you and I talked offline a few days ago. You are the head football coach at Mitchell High School. And yes, sir. And of course, one of the biggest impacts that COVID has had in terms of sports is the fact that Shelby County Schools has decided that there's not going to be any fall sports at all, and that, of course, means high school football. As a head coach, when you first heard that decision, what was your thought about all of this?
Well, as a head coach, first thoughts, you always thinking about your players.
Mm-hmm.
You're always thinking about your athletes. How you going to try to get them looked at for as college? How it's going to impact their lives.
And as you sort of process the decision of no sports, and you have a lot of top flight athletes on your team, and I know that the reaction was swift, and I know there was one of anger. I mean, can you let us inside your program just for a minute, just to let us know kind of when you had to have that conversation with them, what was the reaction? I mean, how did how were things taken in terms of that?
Well, the first time, I had to just sit them down, and just let them understand that things happen. The superintendent, was gonna, made a decision to not have sports for the fall, and you just have to sit them down. Some of them took it different, and some of them took it like, well, when can we play? What are you gonna do? Or why do you do it? We just had to sit them down and just get them to understand it.
Yeah, I know that you and I, when we talked initially, you said, when I asked you what your personal thoughts were, you said, he's in a tough spot. I mean, this is a virus that none of us have ever seen before. It is clearly impacting, everybody, young and old alike. And he was put in a tough spot, don't you think? The superintendent I'm talking about.
Say it again. Say it one more time.
No, I was saying that when you and I initially had the conversation about it, I was asking you, how you felt about it personally, and you said, this is a very tough line that the superintendent had to draw, and it was kind of a tough decision for him, wasn't it, to be able to just to cancel out fall sports altogether?
Oh, yeah, it's a hard decision. It's a very hard decision, for anyone just to, have to cancel a season for, young athletes. It's a hard decision both ways.
Yeah. So, I mean, okay, so here's where we are, Coach. We know there's no football, but, you have some 5-star athletes on your team. You have some prime athletes on your team who are looking forward to maybe this was their senior year. And, they were looking forward to getting out there and showcasing their talents on the field. You hear from coaches in college. You hear from folks all the time wanting to know about your talent and wanting to come out and check them out and see them. Is there an option for any of these athletes at all, like in terms of combines or places where they can do tryouts and situations like that? What have you heard, if anything, about that?
Well, right now, it's hard getting into going into the colleges right now. I don't think they're allowing students to come and participate. I don't think they giving students players options to come right now.
Right.
But what we're going to do, once everything kind of settle down, we're going to continue to practice with our kids. To keep them in shape, to keep them kind of prepared, because we were planning on going and doing tryouts at different colleges. That's what we're planning on doing to them. We're going to take them and, just have try to get someone to look at them. Hopefully we can get a combine down here where we can bring all the seniors and the juniors to go and work out.
Yeah.
And then if that don't work, we just have to put it on, do it ourselves as coaches, come together and put them on, on video and just, put them on tape and just show them to the colleges.
Now, speaking of that, and you just brought up a good point. You, in consultation with a lot of coaches, all the coaches, in your league, in your division that you play. I mean, I'm sure everybody is really trying to scramble now, trying to come up with the best way to be able to not only keep your athletes in shape, but to really maybe get them an opportunity to showcase their talents in front of some of these college folks, as you said. You all have to kind of get together to really be able to put something big together in order for them to be able to move forward. Am I correct?
Yeah. I mean, one thing about it, sometimes, it's really not a panicking move right now.
Right.
Because when we panic, we do things, rational. We just have to, stop and think and put your head together and see how you can figure it out.
Right.
We have to figure out how to do things now and figure out how to make it better for the kids. That's what we got to do instead of just talking negative. And, I'm not a negative person, I always believe in, anything negative, I try to make it positive. And that's right now I'm trying to work on, positive things for the kids.
Talking with Mitchell High School football coach, I'm sorry, Coach, if I cut you off, Nathan Cole. And what you just said a minute ago about, not being negative about it, not talking negative about it, it sounds like you're saying this is what it is, and all of us need to get together. All of us need to collectively get together and do what's best for these kids.
Of course. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
He made a decision. It is what it is. And what can we do about it? Nothing. So, hey, let's move forward with it, and let's see can we do something positive for the kids.
Well, I really admire your attitude, and I'm hoping that a lot of your other fellow head coaches for some of these other high school teams feel the same way. Because at the end of the day, there's nothing that you could do about it. There's nothing that the kids could do about it. But we have to deal with it and do the best that we can with what we have. And hopefully, we'll get to a place where these kids can get out there and do what they love to do.
Of course, and let me say this before you have to go.
Yes, sir.
When I'm the football coach, but I'm not talking about football only. I'm talking about all athletes. I'm talking about all of them. You got cross country, you have volleyball, you have a lot of kids that was impact, about their decision. So we talking about all sports.
Yeah.
So what I'm talking about, we got to get out here and try to help all of them.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you. I appreciate your attitude. I appreciate, what you're trying to do to help these young people, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. And, Coach, thank you so much for taking a few minutes of your time to visit with us this evening. I really appreciate that.
I appreciate you, boss.
All right, man. Talk to you soon. Thank you so much.
Hey, can I get an income? All right, bye.
Yeah. I may have to call him back. I think he wanted to get, copy this, or I don't know, whatever it is. But in any event, this has been a good show here. Hold on. I was expecting a text. All right. Well, anyway, I wanted to end the show. I'll just let you, y'all. I wanted to end the show with a prayer from my pastor. And I think he just finishing up a meeting, and we didn't have time to get it tonight, because I got to be honest with you. What has happened, what is going on, what we're dealing with on a daily basis out here, we need prayer. We need prayer. We need prayer. And this is I don't know where we are. And again, my deepest condolences, and my friend Linda Scott Hardaway said, praying for all the school students, teachers, and staff. We're praying for everybody out here. Cousin Terry's checked in tonight. Appreciate you, Terry. But this is a milestone day in the history of this country that none of us want to celebrate. 200,000 folks gone from a virus that first came up in March. And whether you choose to believe it or not, whether you choose to acknowledge that this virus is real, whether you choose to think it's a hoax, as many of you still are saying, for the life of me, and you know what? If you decide not to check the show out anymore, that's on you. But wait a minute, hold on just a second. I think my coach just called me back. Coach?
Hey, can you see me on top of that interview?
Yeah, I got you. We'll talk offline. I got you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I figure that's what he wanted. But anyway, getting back to the point I was trying to make. I don't know how, for the life of me, anybody out here can think that 200,000 of your brothers and sisters who are no longer here, and you can watch TV and you can see the tears and the anguish and the hurt of family members who, couldn't even speak to them as they were leaving this earth. People who were fine on a Monday and dead on a Friday. And how anybody out here could not think that this is real, it escapes me. And again, I'm not that smart, but I'm smart enough to understand that God allows things to happen. I'm smart enough to know that. And this is one of those things. I have said it, and I've said it on here. I just think that he is not pleased with us. And I just think that, sometimes you allow bad things to happen to good people. Well, hold on now. People are calling me here. Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
This Governor Pegg.
Hey, Pastor. Look, I didn't think you were going to be able to make it, but we got a couple of minutes, so can you grace us with a prayer for the people? Because I was just trying to wrap this show up that way, if you wouldn't mind. I'd really appreciate that. Okay.
All right.
Whenever you're ready.
Yes.
Yeah. Pastor, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. You can go ahead with your prayer anytime you're ready.
Okay, let us pray together. Father, we're so grateful for the many lessons you've given us and for the opportunity. We ask you strength in this time that we're undergoing for people who are suffering and people who are hurting and confused. We ask you give us direction, and we ask you blessing upon our leaders, that you give them the skills that's needed to serve your people. Father God, help us, Lord, to look and keep our eyes on you, for you the only source of our help. Bless Chip and the show and those who were the guests and those who hear the information. Let it be for strength into their lives, Father. We thank you for all your mercies and for all your graces. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Pastor, for that's the perfect way to end this show, and I really appreciate you doing it. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
I'm sorry, I was so late getting to you.
No, you're fine. Thank you. I appreciate it, Pastor.
Okay.
All right. Pastor Walter Page, Senior Pastor of Fullview Missionary Baptist Church, of which I'm a proud member. Perfect way to close out the show. And, as I said before, ladies and gentlemen, this is a time for all of us to maybe try to reflect on how we are as people, where we are as a society, and how we move forward. Because this is real stuff going on out here. This is not fake. And this is not just a television show. This is real life that we are all dealing with out here. I'm very thankful for my guest, Dr. Audrey Elion, Deputy Chief Don Crowe for the Memphis Police Department, and Coach Nathan Cole, head football coach at Mitchell High School. And more importantly, I'm thankful for you all. And if you didn't get a chance to check the show out live, and maybe you can catch it a little bit later on, we'll also be on YouTube as well. But in the meantime, in between time, I'm praying for you. I'm praying for you each and every day. And maybe if you feel like it, you'll pray for me and my family as well. So between now and the next time we join each other, let's be safe, let's be careful, but more importantly, let's treat each other kindly. Let's treat each other like we respect each other and love each other like we're supposed to. Between now and then, God bless, take care, and good night.